Georgia Tech football is in a very bad spot. This once prestigious program has become the laughingstock of the ACC, has absolutely no identity, and their coach is now nicknamed a used car salesman. The Georgia Tech football program has been on a downfall for a couple of years now, ever since Paul Johnson retired and they moved away from the triple option. When Collins was originally hired away from Temple, many thought he could bring a new style of offense to Georgia Tech and combine that with good recruiting and a fertile recruiting area can make Georgia Tech into a sleeping giant in the ACC. After 3 years though, it has not gone to plan. Georgia Tech is probably the second worst program in the ACC. Their best players are leaving and fans are not coming to the games. Pretty much every Georgia Tech fan that I've seen wants him fired, but there are a couple of reasons why they're keeping him around. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about the state of the Georgia Tech football program, what has gone wrong for Geoff Collins, and what I think should happen moving forward for the Jackets. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So going back in time, Geoff Collins was born in the state of Georgia and ended up playing linebacker for Western Carolina. After that, he immediately went into coaching and would get his first big start as a graduate assistant in 2001 with Georgia Tech. After that, he'd go back to his alma mater and become the defensive coordinator for Western Carolina before he'd become a recruiting coordinator for Georgia Tech. In 2007, Alabama would actually swipe this guy up, and then he'd get his first major college football break as he became the defensive coordinator for Florida International. After that, he would become part of Dan Mullen as he would go over to Mississippi State and become the defensive coordinator for him in 2014. After that, Collins would go to Florida and become the defensive coordinator for 1 year before he was seen as a good enough option to be hired as the head coach at Temple. His time at Temple wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. He went 7-6 with a 4-4 mark in 2017, where they ended up winning their bowl game. In 2018, they went 8-4 with a 7-1 mark in the conference and ended up going to the Independence Bowl. He went 15-10 there, and eventually he was seen as one of the next Power 5 coaching hires. Where would he end up going? Well, he would go to Georgia Tech. This would end up happening in early December of 2018, and here's what one Georgia Tech site had to say about the hire. Quote, Collins, at 47 years old, is seen as energetic and innovative. He has a reputation as a strong recruiter as well. In the second of his 2 stops at Tech in 2006, he was credited with helping put together one of the best recruiting classes that included Derek Morgan, Jonathan Dwyer, Morgan Burnett, and Josh Nesbitt. Another member of the ACC called Collins, quote, ahead of the curve. Yeah, Geoff Collins was actually seen as a pretty good hire, as he was someone who was young, energetic, had a lot of experience, and could recruit. Now the big question was, could he do it at a program that would have to move away from its identity and have to rely upon a lot less funding? Here's how it would go. Geoff Collins' first class was not highly ranked, but the first test would come in his 2020 class. It ranked 28th in the country, which was very good for Tech standards, and actually brought in a couple of big-time players. They brought in 4 4-star recruits, headlined by big-time running back Jahmyr Gibbs, former Florida State quarterback commit Jeff Sims, 4-star corner Miles Brooks, and 4-star defensive end Jared Ivey. But going back 1 year, in 2019, the team would not have a great start. James Graham was the starting quarterback, Jordan Mason was the team's starting running back, and Amarion Brown became the best receiver. Tech opened up on a Thursday night game on the road against number 1 Clemson, and I cannot think of a harder way to start out your season. They ended up losing 52-14, but in week 2 they would show some promise as they would beat South Florida at home. You know, that isn't the biggest win in the world, but compared to what Collins is doing now and where USF used to be, that was seen as a decent win. But that was very, very short-lived, as in the following 2 weeks, he'd show what he was truly about and where the program was. They lose at home to the Citadel 27-24 in overtime, and then against his former school Temple, they lost 24-2. Yeah, they only managed to muster up a safety in that one. After that, they got killed by North Carolina, got killed by Duke, and then had a pretty weird game. This one sucked for Miami fans, as Georgia Tech ended up winning 28-21 in overtime. Tech went back to their losing ways, as they lost 3 straight games, including a 45-0 shutout at the hands of Virginia Tech and a 52-7 beatdown from their rival Georgia. First season did not go well, as they went 3-9, but as I said, they had a pretty decent recruiting class coming in. In 2020, they were starting to build a little bit of momentum. Jeff Sims would now be the starting quarterback as a true freshman, and he would throw for 13 touchdowns and also run for 6 touchdowns. He was a dynamic threat, and then combining that with Jahmyr Gibbs and Jordan Mason, Tech had a pretty good ground game going. They also had Jalen Camp, who ended up getting drafted as a receiver, and this would translate to some wins, right? Well, not quite. They would beat Florida State in week 1 16-13, and this has become one of the better wins of the Collins era, but after that, they went back to reality. They got killed by number 14 UCF at home, got killed by Syracuse in week 3, and then lost 73-7 to Clemson. Clemson has not been Geoff Collins' friend so far, but mixed in there, they did beat Louisville, who was a preseason ranked team, and they did compete with NC State. They would end up getting killed by Notre Dame though, and lost to Pitt, so things were not going that great, and their only other win came against Duke, as they won 56-33, and that Duke team was horrendous. Once again, Collins only ended up winning 3 games, and he now had 6 wins in 2 years. Year 3 was going to be very important for him. Led once again by Sims at quarterback and Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, Tech was expected to have a better year. That is not what would end up happening. In week 1, Northern Illinois would come to town, and while the Huskies actually ended up being pretty decent, they lost this game 22-21 at home, and this set the tone for year 3, and they were already way behind the 8 ball. In week 2, they would end up beating Kennesaw State, before they'd probably have the most heartbreaking game of the Collins era. Down 14-8 against Clemson, the Tigers ended up making a goal line stand, and number 6 Clemson survived this game. After that, they would in fact get the best win of the Collins era, as the Jackets would end up beating number 21 North Carolina 45-22, but the Tar Heels were pretty overrated, and that game exposed them. After that, they got killed by Pitt, beat Duke by 4, and then the losing really started. They lost close games to Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Miami before their last 3 games were terrible. They got beat pretty bad by Boston College, and then lost 55-0 on the road against Notre Dame and 45-0 against number 1 Georgia. Both of these games were absolutely horrendous, and the saddest part about the Georgia game was not only did the team not show up, but neither did the fans. This was a home game, but it was a red game as Georgia fans traveled really well, and in these last 2 games, the Jackets got outscored 100-0. Collins went 3-9 with a 2-6 mark in the ACC, and no progress had seemingly been made in year 3. After the season was over, their All-American all-purpose player in Jahmyr Gibbs left, and a couple of other highly touted players also decided to leave. Add in the fact that Collins' so-called good recruiting was now ranked number 42 in the nation, and this had a lot of people calling for his head. Many wondered if Collins would survive the end of the year, especially after those last 2 games, but it was announced that he'd be coming back for a 4th year, and at that moment, I saw so many Georgia Tech fans basically throw in the towel. They view Collins as a guy who can't win, can't recruit, can't coach, and is a used car salesman. On paper, it makes no sense why he is still there. He's gone 9-25 with a 7-18 mark in the ACC. He's not recruiting well, and his teams aren't even competing. In year 3, things have not gotten any better, but there is one reason why they're keeping him around, and that is money. If the Jackets want a new head coach, they're going to have to pull up the Brinks truck and pay a major buyout. This was seen as a long-term rebuild, so Collins signed an extensive contract, and this one is pretty difficult. Add in the fact that Georgia Tech doesn't have the biggest fan base or the biggest bank in the world, and this leaves the Jackets in a very difficult spot. We saw a mass exodus of players from Georgia Tech, and a lot of the boosters were talking about pulling the plug, but Collins at least did fire 3 assistant coaches and is going to try to turn it around in year 4. One article from The Athletic had a quote that pretty much sums it up perfectly. He said, quote, "If Geoff Collins has succeeded at anything in his 3 seasons at Georgia Tech, it's vagueness. He will tell you how great recruiting is going, how successful his strength and conditioning program is, how his players have bought in, and that the foundation is being laid for success." He always seemingly is saying something, and that's why so many people compare him to a used car salesman. Right now, because of money, Collins will probably at least finish out the 2022 campaign, but expectations are going to be pretty high, as it's either going to be make a bowl game or you're fired. If I'm being honest, I don't think Georgia Tech is going to get there. Jeff Sims was good as a freshman, but he severely regressed last year, and he may not even win the starting job, as Akron transfer Zach Gibson is going to give him a run for his money. They once again play Clemson in week 1, and if history repeats itself, it's either going to be a blowout or it's going to be a heartbreaking ending. After that, they get Western Carolina at home, which could honestly be one of 2 wins I see on the schedule. I don't think they're going to be Ole Miss or UCF, and the only game I could see them winning is Duke. They're going to have to go on the road to Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Georgia, and Pitt, and there's no world in which I see them winning any of those games. So honestly, I see a 2-10 record on the horizon for Georgia Tech this year, and there is no possible way in my eyes that Collins will end up saving his job. Yes, they could go on a miracle run, but with this roster, with the state of the program, and with the feelings of the fan base, I just can't see a way in which he sticks around, and it's time for Geoff Collins to go. If it weren't for a ridiculous buyout, he would already be gone, and it's sad to say, but the Geoff Collins era has been a disappointment and a failure. If you're a Georgia Tech fan though, let me know what you think. What has gone wrong for Collins? What is your expectations for this year, and what do you want to happen to Georgia Tech after he is gone? If you're a fan of another school, give me your thoughts on the Georgia Tech program, and give me another topic or program I can take a look at in my next video. Before you go, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.